Welcome back. I'm Curtis Smith. Here it is, what we call the dead of winter, and things look awful dead, but not everything's dead. Even these, such as this redbud that has crispy leaves. It's not dead, the leaves are dead, the tree's still alive and still needs water. But we have a guest here, I think you'll know him, who knows a lot about these kind of things, so we'll ask John. Hi, John.
Curtis, how are you doing?
You got a live oak here. We're in Las Cruces, but this is a plant that's relevant as far north as Albuquerque.
Now this is our cork oak, Quercus suber,
Yep,
and very good oak for the area.
Make fishing cork out of this bark, couldn't we?
It has a very unique bark to it, which is one of its real ornamental characteristics, plus being a good desert oak.
And down here, it tends to be an evergreen for
Right.
at least a part of the year.
Right.
And in Albuquerque, it's going to be more deciduous. But in Albuquerque, we've got the southern live oaks, the emery oak. There are a lot of evergreen oaks that could be used.
Right.
We've got to remember that they need water in the winter.
That's right. We need water here too.
Right. And how often do you recommend watering here in southern New Mexico in the winter?
Here we recommend at least get it watered once a month, and that's with a good deep watering to where you wet the root system, so not just a superficial watering.
And as much as we talk about the differences throughout different parts of New Mexico, that holds true throughout all of New Mexico. We should water, even in northern New Mexico, at least once a month if the ground's not frozen. If the ground's frozen, there's water frozen in the ground, so there's water there.
All right.
You've got some other evergreen plants here that are relevant to northern New Mexico too. Let's go take a look.
Okay.
John, you've got a pine tree here. Pines are common throughout the state. This is the Afghan pine, which will make it as far north as Albuquerque and a little bit further. It's a good tree. It is definitely using up water.
Yes. Evergreens are still photosynthesizing and respiring, and they're using water. So if you do have evergreens and pines, junipers, different evergreens, you do need to put water on them during the winter.
So in the dead of winter, it's not dead.
Right.
Okay, let's look at this one over here. This one looks dead, but it's not dead either.
Okay.
And John, a lot of people think this is dead. It kind of looks kind of deadish. Because it's a conifer, people expect conifers to stay evergreen. This is one of the conifers that does drop its needles.
Right. This is Montezuma Cypress, and you don't see it heavily planted here in the Cruces area, but it's one that can be used more. It does like a little bit more water, so it does better in a situation like this with the deeper soils.
And it'll go even further north in Las Cruces, so we can use it up somewhat into the northern New Mexico. I've seen it in Albuquerque. We've got bald cypress for sure. They're kind of hard to tell apart. So the cypress are good ones to use, but you got to realize they're going to have a nice fall color. In Albuquerque, they've already lost their needles, so they're now just sticks. But they will green up, be very pretty again in the spring, have a nice pyramidal shape. So it's a good plant. You have to be aware that it's not dead, even in the dead of winter. It's a pretty tree, and we ought to use it.
Very pretty. And
we've got over here another one that is green here in the dead of winter. John, here's another evergreen. This one just finished blooming in the fall. Smelled good just probably a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Agnes pungens.
This is the variegated form.
Yeah. Nice.
A lot of times people, you can see the little kind of little dots on the leaf, and it kind of feels like sandpaper, and a lot of people mistake that for insect damage.
Yeah, or think it's the bugs themselves.
Right.
And it's just an evergreen plant which grows even up into northern New Mexico as well. A good plant to have.
Does quite well.
But you know there's a hazard for an evergreen plant growing in New Mexico. Let's go look at one right over here that shows the problems. Well, John, here's a plant that's an evergreen, but it has a little bit of a problem. It scorches, dries out. Right now it's just discolored by the sunlight and the lack of water. It just can't take up enough water in the winter. And if you look underneath where it's shaded, sun protected from the wind and the sun, it's nice and green. So the hazard for our broadleaf evergreen, especially the broadleaf evergreens, is loss of water and sun exposure in our climate.
Right.
And so need a little bit of shade. Over here on the shady side, this boxwood is nice and green. So in the shade, it's going to do a lot better, but where it's exposed to wind and sunlight, it's going to do pretty poorly. And This one's probably the most sensitive of the evergreens that we use.
Right, and still a very commonly grown evergreen, both.
Less so in the north because we do have greater problems there, but it is growing up in the north as well. John, it's good to be here in southern New Mexico looking at some things that are relevant even to northern New Mexico. So there is wide adaptability to the plant materials. Some of the similar problems, some of the concepts the same, watering.
Right. One of the, I guess, important things that we want to get across in the show today is the need for water during the winter. Because these evergreens, both the conifers and the broadleaf evergreens, do need some kind of moisture during the winter.
They do indeed. And thank you for sharing that with us and sharing your plants down here.
Thank you.